Good afternoon, everyone. We'll be getting started shortly, just waiting for some folks to join us. We'll start in 1 minute. All right, let's get started. So my name is Rob Koyfin. I'm founder, CEO of Koyfin. We also have Connor McNeil on the webinar as well. He's a product manager slash runs some of our social media on Koyfin. And we're excited to present this really new functionality, or a basket of functionality that we've been working on for quite some time. It's based on the feedback that we've received from all of you in terms of things that would make your life easier, that you'd want to see into Koyfin. And the central point of that is client reports, is the ability to create reports and present them internally to investment committees or present them to clients, explaining the difference between their portfolio and a model portfolio. And that's a big part of what we will be talking about today. Let me just kind of share my screen and walk you through the agenda item here. Great. So for the agenda, we're going to be talking about a new plan called Advisor Pro. This is a plan that we plan to roll out in September. It's going to contain a lot of the new functionality that we're going to discuss in this on this call, and I'll walk you through the details. I'm going to do a demo of some of the functionality, including client reports and sleeves, and show you how it works. We'll also leave time for Q&A at the end in case somebody wants to ask questions. If you do have a question during the webinar, feel free to ask it in the chat below, in the Q&A chat below. Connor will answer one of those questions either by writing the answer, or we'll save it for the end and can discuss it in more detail. And then the last thing to remember is everyone on this call is going to receive a beta access to client reports until September 3rd. So if you have a pro subscription today, we're going to enable you for client reports up until September 3rd, so you could really play around with it, use it. It's really important for us if you could give us feedback. So you could email me, rob@koyfin.com. You could email our help desk, help@koyfin.com, with any feedback. So that would be much appreciated, as this is version 1. And as you know, we iterate quickly on client feedback. And then the last thing is, if you don't have pro access, if you're not a pro user today, feel free to email our help desk and say, hey, I want a free trial to pro and access to client reports, and we could permission you for that as well. So before moving on to the demo, just wanted to kind of cover what Advisor Pro is going to contain. So again, Advisor Pro is going to be the highest plan that we offer starting in September. It's going to contain everything that Pro has today and some additional functionality that I think will make your lives much easier. One thing is it's going to have client reports and proposals, so the ability to kind of create PDF reports and really customize them, and I'll show you in a second what that looks like. The ability to really create ETF and mutual fund reports, so being able to create reports for ETF mutual funds, using sleeves and model portfolios, so being able to use sleeves or model portfolios in other model portfolios. We have a new function, or a new path that we call client portfolios, and that area of Koyfin is going to be where you can either create client portfolios manually by uploading them via CSV or typing out the positions. And we'll also allow you to integrate client portfolios with Schwab. So you'll be able to pull your Schwab accounts into client portfolios. And we'll also add a bunch of more integrations as we move on. And so we have a bunch of integrations planned, and we'll be actually polling some of you in terms of what are the most important integrations for you to have. The Advisor Pro plan is also going to have portfolio data downloads, so you'll be able to download any sort of data that's in model portfolios or client portfolios. And we'll also be adding functionality that we're working on right now. It's not going to be ready by September, but we're planning to release it sometime in October. And that's going to be the ability to really upload your own custom time series. So if you have any sort of private equity data or VC investments or SMAs that aren't on Koyfin, you'll be able to upload those into Koyfin and create your own custom time series. So since pricing is important, just wanted to mention the pricing of the plan is going to be $179 a month. So that's going to include all this functionality. It's still very competitively priced versus some of the alternatives that we see with our competitors. So we really want to make sure that we're delivering a lot of value and still making our product more than 50% cheaper than some of our competitors. So with that, I'm gonna go to the demo and show you what client reports and sleeves look like. This is the homepage of Koyfin. I'll cover the sleeves functionality first, so very kind of brief and self-explanatory. But if you have a model portfolio, you can now add other model portfolios to it. So, for example, if I have my income US portfolio and I go to edit it, I have BND and VTI here as my two constituents. But let's say I wanted to have my income global model portfolio as a constituent. I could add that here and then assign a weighting to it. Not to take it away from here. And then if I start training. And then if I have another model portfolio here, for example, if it's my income US, or let's say it's my industrials, and I wanted to use that model portfolio here, I could do it as well. So you could use an unlimited number of model portfolios in the model portfolio and have that sleeves concept. And once you save the changes, that'll filter through to all the exposure exhibits, to all the constituent exhibits. And so you could analyze that model portfolio composed of sleeves and really drill down to the underlying holdings and see what everything has. So that's a pretty exciting feature. And we'll have that in the Advisor Pro package as well. Let me show you how client reports work. So client reports are going to be, there's going to be a button here called Create Report. And once you create the report, there's going to be a high level of kind of customization that we allow you to do. So we're going to allow you to save a bunch of templates in terms of how you customize it. Let me start from scratch to show you what it looks like when you begin. So what happens is I have kind of like two security inputs here, or two portfolio inputs here. So one is my primary portfolio, one is my secondary portfolio. So let's say kind of like the primary portfolio that I want to pitch to a client based on their risk tolerance and based on some discovery that I've done already is kind of a balanced global portfolio. And the portfolio that I have them in today, or that they have today, is the Bobby Jones portfolio. This is something that Bobby Jones would have sent me before this meeting or before I created this report. I would have uploaded this portfolio to Koyfin using a CSV import. We are working on ways to just upload a PDF and we'd create a portfolio for you. But today that's done via either manual or CSV import. And so my primary portfolio is my balanced portfolio. My comparison security is my Bobby Jones portfolio. And the way they're going to be named is kind of my proposed portfolio. And let's call this it's going to be as named, which means in the report is going to show up as Bobby Jones portfolio. I'm going to hit next. My client that I'm presenting this is Bobby Jones portfolio report balanced. And then the start date, and then the start date is customizable. So this right now chooses the earliest available start date of the two portfolios. So I can make that start later. The end date is not customizable because all the data is as of the end of the start date. So this is not editable, but the start date is. And then I could upload my logo. So here, let's say I know we have a ton of LPL financial advisors on our platform. I've chosen LPL as our logo here. I'm going to hit next. And this is where I start kind of interacting with the report. The first thing is kind of the homepage. So the homepage is really kind of, we allow you to choose how you want that to be displayed. That's obviously really important for your branding. So for me, let's say I want my kind of homepage to look as a geometric kind of pattern here. I have my logo here. You could also choose your brand color. So to the extent that you want your report and all the accents in the report, all the graphs to have a certain type of line or color accent that really matches your brand. You could choose that here. So for LPL, I'm just going to choose this kind of more darker blue as my accent color, because that's kind of what the LPL logo is. And so I'll click out of that. And then I'll go to the pages here, which is kind of like where I can select my pages. So right now we have 12 pages for you to select from. We're going to have more and more pages down the line. This is kind of the initial version 1 set of what we thought was the most important. You can sort of mix and match and move around these pages. So this is what we call the comparison summary. It really gives you a high-level overview of the two portfolios side by side. So here's my proposed portfolio. Here's the Bobby Jones portfolio. And then I could see kind of for each one of these important metrics, whether it's fees or yield or risk or performance, kind of is there an improvement? Is there a difference in the two portfolios? And what we've also done is give you this little dial to put into perspective of how this portfolio compares versus kind of all portfolios in general. So here on the fees, the portfolio I'm proposing has 0.1% fees. That's kind of in the top percentile or the top quintile of all the model portfolios that we've analyzed, whereas the Bobby Jones portfolio at 0.5% is sort of the average. So there's a huge improvement there. On the yield side, it's about average for both of them. In terms of the max drawdown, the Bobby Jones portfolio really has a severe drawdown in its history, whereas this portfolio has a much more modest drawdown and similar to the volatility. So this is all kind of all this data, all this information is really there for you to then communicate of why this portfolio is a better fit for Bobby Jones, whether it has to do with the fees or the yield or the max drawdown or the volatility or the Sharpe ratio or the performance. And you get to pick and choose what you focus on. We have had some advisors ask us, can you customize kind of like what you show here? And so we'll do that down the line. But today that's sort of this is the page you get. You can hide this page if you don't want it in the report. But this page you can't today choose kind of what's on the gauges. The holding summary in terms of the proposed portfolio and the current portfolio, some really important kind of metrics in terms of dividend yield, expense ratio, what the top holdings are of the proposed portfolio, and some color in terms of the allocation and the holdings of the actual underlying holdings and the asset allocation in terms of where the asset allocation is. The exposure summary of kind of thinking about where's the proposed portfolio on the growth and value scale, or this heat map, the style heat map, what the different kind of regional exposures are. So in this portfolio, it's a little bit more overweight US and a little bit more underweight other parts of the world. And also kind of like what are the different sector tilts. So in this portfolio, it's more tilted towards tech and kind of versus the current portfolio, and much and less tilted towards communication services and consumer discretionary. So those are kind of like big sector tilts that you can discuss and can highlight. We also have kind of the credit exposure summary. So just thinking about where the kind of credit exposures of this portfolio, the maturity exposure, the fixed income sectors, and the credit quality. This is the performance table or the performance page. So just showing what the performance over time looks like, both on a historical basis, and then just for different return periods. So for different annual returns or different trailing returns, how the portfolios compare on the proposed versus current portfolios. So you can see there's been a really nice improvement here for these two portfolios on the performance side over the past 1, 3, and 5 years. But if you look at it on kind of like a longer term basis since 2015, where we had a little bit of probably a tech bubble, then the old portfolio outperformed. But this is a really nice kind of way to have a conversation in terms of what are return expectations, what are return expectations over the recent period or over the longer period. And this gives you kind of the data to do that. The risk page kind of walks you through the drawdown and different stress tests for the portfolios. The stock X-ray goes down and really shows the customer what they would be owning in the proposed portfolio. So for the proposed portfolio, these would be the biggest underlying holdings in terms of the stocks and some of the fixed income positions that the portfolio has, as well as the top 15 performers. So which are kind of the best performing stocks in the portfolio. We have a disclosures page here that's going to be populated. We haven't populated with the default disclosures, but this page is editable, so you can actually put in your own disclosures. You can copy paste your own disclosures and save that as a template, and then those disclosures will save for kind of some of the reports you have going on. So today, when you have beta access, this is going to be blank. You can put disclosures in there, whatever the disclosures that your firm requires, and save them, and those will show up. Some quantitative metrics that you may want to kind of talk through on returns and drawdowns. And again, we compare the two portfolios. We explain briefly what the metric means, and then we have a nice little checkbox to kind of explain is the portfolio, the proposed portfolio, is it improving on that metric, or does it look better on that metric? So again, trying to highlight kind of like where is the improvement and contrasting A versus B. Then we also have an exhibit on cash sensitivity. So this is actually related to a hypothetical 60/40 portfolio. And the reason this exhibit exists is we heard a lot of feedback from you all that when you're speaking to clients, a lot of times they'll be in a lot of cash, and really showing them that being in a lot of cash is not really helpful over longer periods of time, because that's a cash drag. So what we wanted to do was just show you the sensitivity of a 20-year return if a 60/40 portfolio has sort of 0% cash, 10% cash, and 20% cash, and what that actually means for the dollar return of that portfolio. So could be an interesting way to highlight and to demonstrate why having a high cash balance in a portfolio is not ideal. Same thing with the fee sensitivity. So just showing you, I know a lot of advisors, when they're looking at the current portfolio that a client or a potential client has, they're focused on the fees and really explaining why lower fees contribute to that return over time. And so here we're kind of doing the same thing with a hypothetical 60/40 portfolio, and just showing what the difference in the portfolio performance is if it's a 1% fee, a 1.5% fee, or a 2% fee. Hopefully those exhibits will be helpful for those types of conversations. We also have a notes feature. So if you wanted to have notes in the report, so if you wanted to add like a summary or just important highlights, you could do that as well. And so this, we call this summary. So you'd be able to kind of have this summary, this notes page wherever you want, and I could add multiple pages or multiple notes and have those throughout the document if I wanted to. And that's something we heard also from a bunch of users in terms of being able to insert notes into reports to really explain something in more detail. So once I have my report, and once I want to create it, I click Create Report. That pulls up a dialog for me. That's kind of like the print dialog, and that's the way we're going to save the PDFs is in the print dialog in Chrome. If you have a printer, there could be a printer here selected, but make sure you have kind of like Save as PDF, and you hit Save. This report saves in my drive here. And I have to go open it. Let me just share my screen here that has my the actual PDF, so you could see what it looks like. So this is the actual PDF that was downloaded on my computer, and I can kind of, this is the notes page, which I didn't fill out. This is the gauge page. This is the holding summary, equity summary, whatever it is. So this has all the pages that we just toggled on and off, and this lives on your hard drive. which you can then access whenever you want, or send to a client, or print out, or whatever it is. So that's kind of the generating the PDF and the actual flow. I just wanted to highlight a couple of other things that are important here. So one is we do have kind of this concept of templates. So if you do have a portfolio, I'm just going to click a random one. If you do have a portfolio and you wanted to hide some of the let's say exhibits, and you wanted to move around some of the exhibits, and you wanted to put in the kind of like custom disclosures, you can save that as a template, so you don't have to do that going forward. So this is, let's say, my basic client report, and I save that as a template. That means that kind of like going forward, when I click create report, this basic client report is going to live here in my template, so I don't have to kind of recreate and go through that process again, which is super helpful. The other thing I wanted to point out is you can create reports for securities. So let's say if I wanted to, instead of having a model portfolio, if I wanted to create a report for, let's say, QQQ, and I'm going to name this as named, and I'm not going to have a secondary comparison. I'm just going to have QQQ. This will kind of, so the comparison summary doesn't make sense, but then some of the other exhibits do make sense, like the key stats, the equity exposure, the fixed income exposure would not make sense for an equity report. The performance summary, the risk, the stock X-ray, the disclosures, obviously, and some of the quantitative metrics, which again don't compare it. It's more of the absolute comparison of QQQ, and then the cash sensitivity and fee sensitivity wouldn't make sense. So you can also save this as a template. So if I wanted to save this as a template as kind of my ETF report, that would save, and all these exhibits would just be available to me next time I wanted to analyze an ETF, so that I don't have to recreate it every single time. So hopefully that helps. I think that's kind of the bulk of what I wanted to show. Let me kind of pause here and see if there are any questions. So question number one is from Steve Keller. I just paid annually for the pro version. How does the 179 per month apply? So with all our plans, if you have a current plan and you upgrade to this, we're going to prorate whatever amount you have on the existing plan and apply it towards the new plan. So the 179 per month is if you pay annually, it's actually higher if you pay month to month. If you let's say you just signed up for Pro last month and you have 800 hours remaining of the plan, if you wanted to upgrade to the Advisor Pro and you purchased it, that 800 hours would be applied as a credit to the amount on your invoice. So that would reduce and it would be applied. So hopefully that answers your question. Next question from Corey. Hey, Corey. On the equity exposure page, how do you account for funds with derivatives? It's a good question. I think it depends on what kind of derivative it is. So we get our equity exposure statistics from Morningstar, and so we'd have to kind of check what they do. So the reason I'm kind of not answering them directly is sometimes they'll include the exposure, and for example, like a 2x fund or a leverage fund, they'll actually include that exposure. But then at other times, if it's an option or some kind of derivative, they won't include that exposure. So I think it depends on the position specifically. And if you wanted us to check kind of a specific fund, let us know, and we'd reach out to Morningstar and be able to kind of tell you how that equity exposure is being counted. Jimmy wants to know anything in the pipeline to include tax cost information for existing portfolios and transaction analysis. And then Corey followed up with even just the tax cost ratio for holdings would be great. So Jimmy and Corey, good news in that client portfolios section that I talked about. that's going to be position based. And so that's going to be based on kind of quantity owned, not by percentages. And it's going to allow you to have a cost basis there. It's actually going to allow you to have lots there if you wanted to get into the lot level. So it's going to be much more focused on the positions and the portfolio, as opposed to model portfolios, which are much more allocation based. They're much more percentage based. And so there's not a good way to have cost basis there. So in the client portfolios, we're going to have kind of much deeper, much better workflows to show the cost basis and to kind of show the P&L, and to think about positions on a more position level rather than a weighting level. So we'll be delivering that, or that'll be available in Advisor Pro in September. And let us know any feedback if we're missing anything once you start using that. Steve wanted to know, is the report format content approved by LPL? Steve, that's a great question. It's not approved by LPL. It's not approved by anyone. So if your company does require approval, we'd love to be put in touch with the correct department. The reason I picked LPL is I know we have a ton of advisors at LPL. We've spoken to kind of some the LPL kind of leadership about having Koyfin be on the affinity program. We want to kind of restart those conversations after this report's functionality comes out. So Steve, if you have any kind of suggestions on who we could contact to push that along, we'd love that. And the more users at LPL want this functionality, the quicker kind of the mothership will approve that for all the advisors. For the part where the report compares average fees, is that based on US data? Can you change it to Canada if you wanted? John, that is based on kind of US data today. When we looked at the averages, we are thinking about allowing users to then change those averages, or to kind of change the bands and customize those bands. And so we may do that based on kind of feedback we receive, but today it is based on US funds, and that's something that's important to highlight. Mike wants to know if I apologize if I missed it, but to clarify, the portfolio will calculate returns net of all fees. Thanks. Yes, the portfolio returns are net of fees. They're net of the underlying fund fees. So if an ETF or a fund, it has a fee that they're charging, that's net of those fees. And then in the portfolio creation process, in the model portfolio creation process, we do have an input there for fees. So for example, if you charge a 1% fee, the performance that we show would be net of the 1% fee. And we also allow you to specify the frequency of how that fee is collected, whether it's monthly, quarterly, semi-annually, or annually. And we would take out the fee out of that performance. Paul wants to know, what is customizable currently? What is the plan and timeline for adding customization to pages? Paul, some things are customizable today. So for example, the notes page, the disclosures page, thinking there might be one other one. At the end of the day, we sort of want to make everything customizable because we know that every advisor is different. If there's any very obvious things that you think we should make customizable, definitely reach out. And again, I want to stress that this is our version 1 of reports, and we love hearing feedback. And for kind of our longtime users, you know that we iterate and take feedback seriously. So please reach out to me or help@koyfin.com or rob@koyfin.com, and definitely let us know kind of like what you think would be valuable if we added it to this functionality. Ryan wanted to kind of add that additional stress testing scenarios would be helpful as well. So we have the stress tests right now based on the portfolio kind of time range. So I think my portfolio started in 2014. So we only had 2 or 3 periods of stress test. If you have a portfolio that starts in like 2007, then you'll have Great Financial Crisis, you'll have a taper tantrum, you'll have European debt crisis, stuff like that. So we do have a bunch of those major episodes. If there are some episodes that aren't in there and you want us to include, let us know, and then we'll definitely include them. So Matthew Minzer wants to know, have you had any success integrating your program with a Canadian firm, such as a bank-owned brokerage? We don't have any kind of official integration. We do have kind of Canada is our second biggest market. We have users globally. So Canada is an important market. Matthew, if there's a firm that you think would be a good fit for us to speak to have kind of like a partnership and integration, let us know, and we will definitely get on that. Is there a way to add a proxy symbol without a long history to show against stress test scenarios? So is there a way to add a proxy to a symbol without a long history to show against stress? So, Matt, I'm not exactly sure what your question is. If you wanted to kind of like ask for the mic, I think we can enable you. But if you're asking, can you input a custom security into a portfolio? For example, like a proxy symbol, meaning like it's a symbol that doesn't exist on Koyfin, but you wanted to add that. So for example, like maybe like a vol fund or a private equity fund, will allow you to do that in version 2 of Advisor Pro, which is kind of that functionality that is anticipated in October, which is kind of creating custom assets or custom securities. And you'd be able to take those securities and include them in a model portfolio. So those would kind of offset or exacerbate the stress tests. Or you could take those securities and just make them the model like a specific individual model portfolio of only that security, and you could show how that performs in different stress test scenarios. So I think depending on what you do, and if I didn't understand your question, feel free to kind of respond, or I think you could ask for the mic if you wanted to speak live, if that's easier as well. Mike Molitaris wants to know, will there be a report that shows if I want to model, say, 4% withdrawal rate, how the portfolio performs net of withdrawals, rebalances, and as you mentioned, fees? Mike, so we've been asked about withdrawals and kind of modeling some cash flow before. We do want to create that functionality. It's on our roadmap. We hope to get to it soon. In kind of full transparency, it's not something that is on our immediate roadmap, but it's something that's been asked enough and a couple of times, and we definitely want to deliver it in the kind of like the next 1 or 2 quarters for sure. And then Nancy wants to know, would be valuable to be able to load in historical performance on a model portfolio? Interesting. So Nancy, I'm not if you could kind of give us more context by emailing us, rob@koyfin.com or help@koyfin.com. The way we envision kind of like creating a custom history is through a custom security, not having kind of a custom. So basically the way we envision this workflow is you can create a custom security, and let's say it's your model portfolio performance. And then you would upload that security to the model portfolio, and that would maybe be the only security that's in the model portfolio from, let's say, 1980 to 2005. And then in 2005, you would have kind of like some positions that are on Koyfin, and then you could build the return series based on the positions. So I think we'll allow you to do what you want to do. And if that doesn't work with the way I'm explaining it, with creating kind of a custom security and making that custom security kind of the entire portfolio and then uploading that to the model portfolio, let me know, rob@koyfin.com, and then we can have a conversation and understand what you're trying to accomplish. Austin wants to know, I may have missed this, but is there a plan to integrate with planning software for client portfolios like eMoney or Right Capital? Austin, we definitely want to kind of expand our integrations. I think in the near term, we're really focused on kind of custodians and portfolio management systems. We'll be sending out a survey to our advisors in terms of what are the kind of top integrations that they want us to tackle next. But we want to integrate with anyone in the ecosystem that will integrate with us. And so it sounds like firms like Right Capital are very easy and eager to integrate, and others are a little bit difficult. But it always helps when there's users from the company that want us to integrate and kind of push on the other end. So we'll send out that survey. If that's a top integration for you, please let us know. Dwayne wants to know if an FA has monthly performance for an FA directed portfolio, can the performance be input into proposal for comparison? Um, uh, if an, so I think Dwayne, that comes back to kind of that custom asset that we're going to be releasing in October. So you'll be able to kind of create a custom security, which is comprised maybe of the monthly performance. And you could take that custom security and put it in a model portfolio. And that way you will have your custom monthly performance and be able to include that in the proposal. So I hope that answers your questions. If not, please email me, rob@koyfin.com, and we could have a deeper discussion about that. Sam wants to know, he came in late, attribution for equity portfolios, swap portfolio versus, say, Russell 1000 value ETF. Sam, attribution is something that we've been asked about a lot by specifically by equity advisors or advisors focused on equities and equity portfolio management. That's on our roadmap. It's probably something that's kind of closer to end of the year, beginning of next year. But definitely a very, very common request, an important workflow that we want to get to. It's gonna probably live in the my portfolio and client portfolios features, just because those are position-based portfolio functions, as opposed to model portfolios, which are allocation-based. So that attribution is gonna live in my portfolio and client portfolios, and we do plan to release that. Matt wants to know, I have PULS in a portfolio, but it only goes back to 2018. So no stress test scenario prior to 2018 will be shown. So if I wanted to see how this would work in 2008, I need to remove PULS. Yes. So thanks, Matt. Gotcha. So I'm not familiar with PULS, so it sounds like it starts trading in 2018, and that's why you're not getting a start date in the beginning. So today you can do, there's a workaround today that you can do. So what would happen is you could have an allocation period from, let's say, 2005 to 2018, and make sure that PULS is a 0% weighting until 2018. And in 2018, make PULS whatever the weighting you want, like 12%, 10%, whatever it is. And that way the portfolio will, our system will be able to recognize, like, hey, from 2003 to 2018, let's say you only had SPY in there. This is the return of the portfolio. And then starting in 2018, it's SPY and PULS. There's a rebalance period, and it'll be kind of like the portfolio you want today. So that's the workaround today to accomplish that, and it'll show the stress period in 2008 and 2012 and so on and so on. We are going to make an enhancement pretty soon, which will just allow you to kind of have a setting in the portfolio where you could say, hey, instead of starting the portfolio when all the securities start trading, which is what happens today, I want to basically start the portfolio at an earlier date, like 2003, and then make some assumptions on how the value is rebalanced. So we're basically gonna make the portfolio 100% of the securities that are traded at the time. And when a security starts trading like PULS in 2018, we're going to rebalance the portfolio to then allocate to that new security. So that's going to be a setting that we give you that you could just toggle on and off. Today, you have to sort of do that manually by creating a portfolio with different rebalance dates and make sure that historically that before PULS starts trading, you just don't have a weighting toward that, or it's a zero weighting in your portfolio. I have a feeling I may have lost you and I rambled a little. If I did, please email me, rob@koyfin.com, and we can explain that in more detail, and I can actually show you on a video kind of how to create that. Michael wants to know, though, will there be somewhat of a consolidated report of all of our models? Say we have 7 main models. Can a report show the position in all of them in one PDF when talking with clients about which portfolio may be best for them? So I think, Michael, what you're asking about is like, can we have a report that shows multiple portfolios instead of just 2? And we are definitely thinking about ways to have multiple reports. I don't think we've thought about having 7. I think we've thought about having kind of like 3 or 4. It's an interesting question, and maybe if we hear that kind of that request from other users in terms of wanting to show all the models or 7 models and just having a comprehensive list and almost like a fact sheet, maybe we'll have a template that's just geared towards that and just thinking about how that looks. But that's an interesting suggestion. So thank you for that. Okay, any other questions? Really appreciate all the Q&A and all the questions.
Hey Rob, I have a few that I took down maybe just while we wait for the Q&A to fill back up.
Yeah.
Just a few. So one of them asked when will look-through fund data be available for Canadian funds?
Yep. So for Canadian funds, unfortunately, we don't have the holdings today. We are working and looking for data providers to help us with that. But today, there is no look-through for Canadian funds, and there's no holdings for Canadian funds.
Another one, more of a feedback item, but someone expressed that they'd like to be able to have an investor policy statement in the client reporting tool as well. Just something for us to take note of. I thought that was a nice one. Another one, a few people asked about having multiple benchmarks in the report, which I think would work in a report setting, maybe not necessarily the model UI, but any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's definitely something that people have asked about, and I think it goes back to the having just multiple funds or multiple portfolios in the report, whether and then designating maybe like if we had the ability to have 4 funds, 4 portfolios in one report, you'd have one main fund and then 3 benchmarks that you're comparing to.
Awesome. And then just a couple other ones as well. Could you maybe speak to the different, because maybe the folks on this call might not know, but when we introduce features like client portfolios, there's a lot of interesting things that we're doing with sharing here. So with Advisor Pro in mind, could you maybe just speak to what assets can be shared amongst teams or other Koyfin users and just
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely sharing is top of mind because we see that Koyfin is just being used by teams and nobody likes to create stuff 10 different times and people just want to create things once for the entire team and share that. So with these templates, with these model portfolio templates, with these client reports templates, you'll be able to share it with a team. So you'll be able to kind of create a client report template and then share it with a team. And then team members can edit it or just use it. And then with the custom securities upload, you'll be able to share that with the team as well. So you'll be able to kind of create a custom security. So for example, if it's a private equity fund that kind of a bunch of advisors are investing in, you'd be able to have one person update that fund monthly, and then everyone else on the team would be able to see that. So there'd be some team sharing around that.
Awesome. And just 2 more before we jump back into Q&A. Integrations, we had a lot of questions about who's next. Could you maybe just, I don't know, speak to that kind of pipeline and maybe if there's any people, any that we're particularly interested in?
Yeah, absolutely. So look, I think with integrations, the custodians come first, and it's sort of Schwab we're integrated with, and then there's Fidelity and Altruist are probably the next 2. I think Altruist is easier to integrate with. From what I understand, Fidelity is not, just because it's a longer process. So to the extent we have advisors that we have a ton of advisors that want Fidelity, we just need to kind of have those people reach out to Fidelity and say it's important for us to integrate with Koyfin. And then on the kind of like portfolio management side, we've I'm trying to think of like the most popular requests, Orion, Adapar, kind of who's the
There's one that begins with a T that I can never remember what it's called, and it has like an am sound in it. Someone commented it. We'll know. We have all these questions when we finish the call, so we'll look at that.
Is it Tamarack?
Yes, it is.
So Tamarack is another one that's difficult to integrate with. And there's one more that's equity focused that I always forget. Anyway, there's the good thing about our industry is there's just some big established players, and I think those are the ones that have been around for a long time. So a lot of advisors use them, but the functionality just isn't there, and that's where Koyfin shines in terms of the analytics. And so we definitely want to integrate with them, and we'll be sending out that integration survey for you all to fill out. And we'll really base our kind of like next partners based on the results of the survey. If there's anyone that you feel very adamant about that we should integrate with, my email is rob@koyfin.com.
Awesome. And then last one, just because I can see the Q&A, we have a few questions in there. More of a feedback item, really, but I just wanted to highlight it because I get this feedback in emails as well. Would be great to easily identify securities that are limiting portfolio performance over specific time periods. So like how the underlying is affecting the portfolio.
The underlying like look through on the X-ray level, or like one of the ETF or mutual fund positions.
I guess you could refer to like the underlying equities, or if it's fund based. I believe the commenter was suggesting this at the security level, not necessarily looking through the fund and then looking at what's happening in that fund. More so, if you own 50% SPY and then you own 50% BND, what one's dragging the portfolio up and down, that kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's a really interesting workflow in terms of attribution and what's driving performance, and that's something that I think we will definitely focus on and tackle at some point soon.
So cool. We do have a few other items in the Q&A as well, but that does it for the ones that I saved.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Connor. Let me just go back to the Q&A here. So Josh wants to know if we're linked to Schwab, can the model portfolios be updated automatically? Would that require us to determine the best proxy account for the model portfolio? So, Josh, the way we're going to have it set up is that initially you'll be able to import manually into client portfolios from Schwab, and then sometime soon, probably at the end of September or October, we'll have a setting where it'll automatically be sucked into client portfolio. So you could just designate some master accounts and they'll automatically be downloaded into Koyfin. And so that'll be an automated process. And then we do have kind of some plans to then for a client portfolio. So let's say it's Bobby Jones, and then Bobby Jones has kind of like a retirement portfolio and two other portfolios or accounts. You'll be able to kind of designate a model portfolio to benchmark against, or maybe to proxy against, so that you could have a sense of like, hey, this customer or this client is benchmarked or is related to this model portfolio. Let's say the growth portfolio, and another one would be related to an income portfolio. So you'll be able to determine that. But we will allow kind of like the automatic ingestion of Schwab portfolios. So hopefully that answers your question. Matt, any thoughts on integrating risk profile questionnaire for clients to score versus portfolio versus to score a portfolio versus proposed? I think that's a great idea. I know kind of like the risk questionnaires are a very popular workflow on other systems, and I think it makes total sense for us to integrate risk questionnaire into Koyfin. Probably kind of like not in the next couple of months, but definitely I think it makes sense and something we want to do. Dale wants to know, I'm considering switching to Koyfin from another service. I use Koyfin free version every day. Who can I reach out to for a pro demo? So Dale, feel free to reach out to me, rob@koyfin.com, and I can help you out and point you in the right direction. Michael wants to know, will a generic fact sheet for a portfolio be able to be shown in a report, or is it only when comparing portfolios? Yeah, Michael, so you can basically create a report and not have a secondary comparison. So you could just have one portfolio, and then in the report you would just hide the pages that show a comparison. So you would basically just have an equity exposure, a fixed income exposure, and any page which tries to compare two things, like those gauges or those dials, you could hide them. So it's up to you to kind of create that fact sheet, and then you could save it as a template, and then you could use that. But that is possible. And if there's any kind of analysis or exhibits that we're missing for you to make a fact sheet, let us know and we will include those. So Steve wants to know, I assume I can just stay with the pro plan at the price I paid last week. The drawback is the lack of ability to create a PDF report. That's, Steve, I hope, whatever plan is best for you. You know, we're starting to have just more and more functionality, and we're starting to create different plans to encompass that and the value we provide. And if the pro plan is something that is conducive and works for your workflow, then that's great. So that's it for all the questions. I think we have a couple more minutes in case someone has a last minute question they wanted us to answer. Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate your support. You'll get a recording of this call. You'll also be kind of upgraded to this beta access for client reports. Again, really ask that you send us any feedback or any thoughts once you're able to use client reports. My email is rob@koyfin.com. Connor's email is connor.mcneil@koyfin.com. And you can always email our help desk, help@koyfin.com, and they'll kind of route you to the right person. And thanks for your support. And we're looking forward to releasing this functionality.